that now. And in the meantime, noting that it is 7:02 on May 1st, 7:02 p.m., May 1st, 2024, I'll call the Board of Health meeting to order. And it is a virtual meeting, therefore the board members will announce their presence. So Daryl Beardsley present.
Matt Beavers present.
Julie Dreyfus present.
Diana Hook present.
Rebecca Honeywell present.
Okay, great. So I have not heard of any urgent items less than 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Does anyone have anything that they're aware of that should be dealt with this evening? Okay, hearing none, then we can move on to the agenda. And so Matt Beavers will be chairing the session.
Okay. Mr. Kingsley, I see a hand up. Typically only board members can add agenda items. I don't know if that's what you're...
No, I had a process question. Let me know when I can ask that.
What's the process question? Go ahead.
So I would like to strongly object to the continued use of Zoom for these meetings instead of in-person meetings.
So that's a state law, actually.
Can I finish my comment?
You can object, but I think that's not a process question at this point. This meeting's happening via Zoom. We have appointments coming. If at the end you want to comment on that, that's fine. But right now this is permitted by state law, and so that's what we're doing.
I understand it's permitted by state law. I'm not allowed to make a comment on that.
We don't allow public comment, and so I thought you had a question about the agenda, and so we're not.
No, I have a question about the process of the meeting.
Yeah, so we're not taking public comment.
If you want to request that be dealt with at a future meeting, we'd be happy to share with you our opinions, but we are sticking to the agenda. Okay.
Okay, so here's a different process question. As an attendee, as a citizen of the town, when do I get to comment or ask a question? How does it work? How does your
You can
process
ask a question on posted agenda items. I thought your question was on the issue of whether the agenda was being revised. In general, we do not have public comment. We usually invite comment from abutters on sort of if there's a property nearby that they're relevant to. We sometimes invite comment on other issues, but those issues have to be posted on our agenda. And so if you would like to discuss the use of Zoom for the future, we can request that we add that to a future agenda.
Let's add it to the next meeting, please.
We will take that under advisement.
What does that mean? You will put it on, or you'll just think about it?
It means well, so part of the issue is the board is changing over because there's an election coming up, and it is the prerogative of the chair of the board to set the agenda. So I can't comment because I will not be on the board after tonight.
So different process question. How does a townsperson add something to the agenda?
They can send a request into the chair, and the chair can evaluate whether that item should be added to the agenda.
Or you can also send it to the staff people.
Yeah.
And the reason something might not be added is it depends on how much is on an agenda. And there are things that we have to take up that are very time sensitive and other things that are not.
So back to my previous question, if you're talking about any agenda item, can any townsperson ask a question, or do you have to be in a butter or have some vested interest?
You have to be recognized by the chair, and
Yes.
generally we do recognize people if there are questions.
Thank you.
Courtney, do you have a question relevant to the agenda?
No, I just wanted to provide a clarification in that in public meetings, there is, according to the open meeting law, there's no requirement for public comments unless otherwise provided in a public hearing, for instance. It's entirely up to the chair of the board.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, so having said that, we're going to move ahead with our agenda. We have variance hearings scheduled at 7:30 and 8. We have a number of chairs business. I know there's interest in the Farm Road and Washington Street homes, some agents business, and then a number of food permits. Since I believe we have the food inspector on, I'd like to start with the food permits. I think there are the number to review for both the mobile vendors and then the renewal for arts. And then there, in addition, sort of related to that, is the request about fee waivers. So why don't we start hearing from Tom on the various permits?
Sure. As far as art specialties goes, they did pay their fee. It was late this year, as it was late last year, but he is paid up. He's overdue for inspection. I'm trying to arrange with Mark to accompany me to conduct a visit there. Kona Ice, I've been in touch with to try to schedule an inspection. Worst case scenario, I can get to him the day of the event, taking into account that it's a relatively low risk food offerings and my familiarity with dealing with him in the past. Thank you, catering. I did conduct an inspection of that vehicle tonight. Mr. Gourmet, I inspected him at the baseball event last weekend. Same thing with Grandy's Ice Cream. And as far as the farm at Baptist Common, Wicked Fruitful, and Holly's Heavenly Creations, those appear to be all low risk foods for temporary permits, which will be inspected the day of the event. And Aloda Crep, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I've been in correspondence with them since they are doing some preparation on site at the library fair. I had them add in a hand washing facility, which they did, and they resubmitted their schematic for that. So it seems like we have all the food permits in order and ready to go according to the agenda here. So that's all I have as far as that goes. Open to any questions.
Any questions from anyone on the board on these? Okay, I might take these then in 3 batches. I think sort of doing one for arts. I'll do one. I believe there was one. Mr. Gourmet was the only one that was just for the DS parade, right? So that's ratification of a prior approval. And then the others are for an upcoming event. All the rest are for upcoming events. Is that correct?
It appears that way, yes.
Okay. All right. So to begin with, do I have a motion to approve the food permit renewal for art specialties conditional to a passing inspection and a sodium posting?
So
And
moved.
compliance with all other.
And compliance with all other applicable laws. Thank you.
We need an acronym for that. But.
Yeah.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. Any further discussion? John, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
I did not hear the motion. Could you repeat the motion, please?
Sure. So the motion is to approve the food permit renewal for art specialties, conditional to compliance with all applicable laws, a sodium posting, and a passing inspection because Tom hasn't had a chance to get out there yet.
Thank you. Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, great. Next, do I have a motion to ratify the food and camp inspector's conditional approval of the mobile food vendor permit for Mr. Gourmet?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, and then I think the rest of these are upcoming events, and so I'm going to take them together. So do I have a motion to approve the mobile food vendor permits for Thank You Catering, Grandy's Mobile Ice Cream, the Farm at Baptist Common, Wicked Fruitful, Holly's Heavenly Creations, Alouada Crepe, and then did I miss one in there? Oh, those are the mobile food vendors, right? Oh no, those are different. Sorry. Let me redo that. All of these are slightly different. So do I have a motion to approve the mobile food vendor permits for Mr. Gourmet and Grandy's Mobile Ice Cream? No, Mr. Gourmet we did, sorry.
Yes.
Grandy's Mobile Ice Cream for the parade and car show. Do I have a motion for that conditional to compliance with all applicable laws?
So
And did we
moved.
need,
Seconded.
did we, oh, oops, okay,
So we're just voting right now on the mobile vendor permit for Grandy's.
okay.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'll go back and do the other one. All right, and if no discussion, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, and the one I missed was a motion for approval of a mobile vendor permit for Thank You Catering, compliance to or conditional to compliance with all applicable laws.
So
So
moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, and so now we have the various one-day food permit approvals for the Library Arts and Crafts Fair. And so do I have a motion to approve the overall permit for the Library Arts and Crafts Fair, the permits for the Farm at Baptist Common, Wicked Fruitful, Holly's Heavenly Creations, and Alawata Crepe? Conditional to
moved.
compliance with applicable laws.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus.
Diana Hook, aye. Oops, sorry.
That's
Out of what?
I think I had an aye from Julie.
Aye from Julie.
Diana, did I hear from you?
Diana Hook, aye.
Okay, and then I think we're on Rebecca.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, great. So I think that covers the food permits themselves. In addition, we've gotten fee waiver requests for the baseball parade and the Sherborn 350th celebration events. We get these requests from time to time. You can see, I think was there a letter here for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
we
for
did
both
the
of these.
Library Arts and Crafts Fair permit as a whole yet?
We did. That was part of the
We did,
last one.
okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
And so we've got the fee waiver request from DS Baseball and the Sherborn 350th events. In the past, we have generally been supportive of fee waivers when it is a town organization doing something else because we think it's silly to just move fees between departments. I would in general
I'll
be
also say, though, I've forwarded on this general question to advisory and town administrator and finance to find out how they'd like us to handle this, because I agree, moving monies from one department in town to another is extra work and not much benefit. One of the questions I had for them is, do they want that kind of thing tracked, just so they understand that the Board of Health, has extra effort for something, but is not seeing fees coming into the department? And then the other issue is, what happens when, so we're waiving the fees, but then are the fees not being applied even as a donation or some other mechanism? Do they care whether that's taking place, or say on a day when there's the library fair, food vendors haven't had to pay any fees, but there's also food establishments operating in town? Is that somehow not treating everyone equally? Is that appropriate? So, and that's not a question I want to have to answer. I don't know if the board feels strongly one way or another, but it's that last question to me that gets much more difficult to say whether that's okay for our established permanent food establishments versus the mobile ones. I don't know if anyone else sees that as an issue.
I kind of agree with you, Daryl. It's hard because it is true. We have a very small town, and there's going to be a high probability that the people applying for permits are going to have a connection to the town to a large extent, and the staff of the Board of Health do have to do their job. We have to carry the responsibility of fulfilling state and local, regional laws, whatever that involves, and it's and it is sort of an operational budget that doesn't have like other income sources coming in. So So I think it's great, a good idea. Thank you for forwarding it on to the administrator and the finance committee, because I think that really is the question. Are we expected to function, completely independently? Because in that case, then it becomes tricky because, we can just sort of say, oh, I really like this cause, let's not charge them. And, that I don't really know what to do there because, and so I don't know. So I think that's great, and that you are getting some other input on it. I'm interested in what other people on the board think, because I do think that it is a good idea to treat everyone the same, and I don't really know where you draw the line when you start not treating people the same.
For me, I agree. This shouldn't be I like this cause, so I'm going to waive your fee. I tend to think of it more in a case of if it is one town department that is paying a fee to another town department, we are just creating overhead without actually generating revenue. And that does feel a little wasteful. And that's where we've sort of done this in the past.
I don't know. If the board administrators and the staff, like the food inspector and Ellen, the replacement of Ellen, still has to do all this work, the question is, when is it appropriate to not collect the fee? And we might just say, well, we just think this is how we should do it. And then, maybe we have the authority to decide on our own. But I think it would be interesting to see what other boards do. Do they waive fees? Maybe they don't have to do inspections the way we do. But anyway, just throwing some thoughts out.
So, other comments from the board?
Well,
It seems
I
like-
was just wondering if we're inspecting the establishments for a one-day permit, there's still someone's time involved with that. Yeah. And that time does add up at the end of the year. How do we account for that? And which I see a little different than one department doing something and transferring money to another department. If it's a private company doing a one-day food event as part of a town event.
It's not captured in the budget, is what you're saying, Diana.
Yeah, or say the time for the inspector, is it captured in the budget? Or are we at the end of the year finding that he didn't have enough time, or the time that we had budgeted for didn't cover everything?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying too.
So I guess from an action standpoint, are we then suggesting that we deny these fee requests, or at least hold on them until we can evaluate this?
We have not had a tracking system, have we, in the past?
No.
And I think that's part of the challenge is I think we can't truly quantify how many fees we are foregoing by doing this process, and how often this actually comes up.
Yeah,
So
and
maybe that is a step going forward, is that we need to actually start keeping track of how many fee requests or fee that we get.
I will say that in general, in my experience on the board, it has been sometimes the library fair and baseball. And those have been the only two I can recall receiving.
And the three
varied over time. It's been.
Well, we don't have the
over time
350th every
and-
year, so it's the first time I'm hearing that one.
There
That
has
was-
been tracking, but it's hard to pull those records, and because the policy keeps shifting and what have you by different boards. So I would still like town to review it. Question is if it's a choice of COA paying the fees on behalf of who they're inviting to an event, then it's a transfer between departments. I don't know if it would be different if they were, if it's a fee waiver for the vendor directly, and does that make a difference to the town?
Yeah.
Like it could otherwise be a donation. I don't know. I really don't know how all that works out.
So
And what the
it sounds to
fairness
me like-
issues are.
I mean, it sounds to me like, just to move this along, because we've got an appointment coming up, it sounds to me like we don't have the information we need. We need to table this for now. It needs to go on the next agenda, and we need to hope we hear back from finance by then, how they would like us to handle this.
Right, and so I think maybe we can have Jean send out just a statement saying that the fee waivers are under review, and we'll get back to people. And then we can maybe get an answer from the town as to whether we don't charge the fees now, or maybe we've received some and we reimburse them. Who knows what happens, but it is a tricky one. And frankly, the library vendors have been coming under an umbrella of one fee that doesn't come close to covering what it takes in terms of time to evaluate all those different vendors.
Okay. Yeah, I think it makes
So
sense.
it's got a lot of different, for a tiny town, it's got a lot of different dimensions to it. Certainly was more of an issue when there was a sandwich shop right nearby the library fair, for example. Then you could directly compare and contrast what it would mean for a food vendor who didn't have to pay a fee, and yet the long-term establishment had been paying fees to operate. So.
All right. So we will get feedback, and this can go on the agenda for the next meeting.
Great.
All right.
Can I move, maybe, I don't know if this is the right time, but can I move that we put the subject on the next agenda for discussion of, private, public, whatever, in person versus hybrid versus Zoom meetings, just because it has come up? Why don't we
this
put it on
is
the agenda and just discuss it?
this
the next
is actually
meeting?
not the time for that. We do have an agenda item to discuss the agenda items, and we'll do that at the end. At which point you
Okay.
can certainly add that.
Okay.
All right.
I wanted to mention here, sorry, just before we
Go
go
ahead.
on, that it looks like we're not going to get to Farm Road and Washington until after the two variance hearings. So for anyone who's on for that, can expect something on the order of 8:20, 8:30, and it might be after agent's business gets handled too.
Yeah, I would expect probably 8:30 at the soonest for that.
Mm-hmm.
Just so people are aware. All right. What can we do in 5 minutes? I don't think any of the agents' business are 5-minute problems.
I could.
We do the farm
show the-
pond grant in 5 minutes?
Yeah, I have a draft letter that I could share.
Okay. You want me to stop?
Yeah. And I let her go. All right. All right, so the Farm Pond Advisory Committee has had a watershed planning program ongoing. There was a really wonderful presentation last year by a key consultant that they're working with on that, and it's to look at issues about the quality in Farm Pond, mostly triggered by the algae blooms that we've been seeing in the last few years that had never been witnessed before, and reduced visibility in the pond. And so there is a grant opportunity that they are applying for, and they needed a letter by the end of this week, or support letters to be sent in. So here's what I've drafted. People want to take a moment and read through it. Let me know if you have anything in particular you wanted to add.
This looks reasonable to me.
Okay.
Yep.
And
I
they
agree.
have, of course, a complete application with many details on what the study thus far has accomplished. So this is to wrap up the study. Any questions? Otherwise, I'd say move to vote, whether to support it.
None for me. All right. Do we have a motion to support this, or a motion to, I guess, support this letter in support of the grant application?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
Great. All right, so we have 1 minute, so I'll start pulling up the documents for 32 Wildwood. Do we have the green cards? Does anyone know?
Yes, Jean said that all of the green cards were received.
Okay. So with that said, seeing that it's 7:30, we will open the hearing for the discussion of the septic replacement at 30 Wildwood Drive. I believe I saw Eric on.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, do you want to let us know what you're proposing here?
Yep, so this is Art Dickinson with Civil Life Solutions. I'm here on behalf of the applicants. I did see one of the homeowners on the call. This is 32 Wildwood Drive. It's the second to the last house on the right before you get to the cul-de-sac. It's a 4-bedroom house. It has a well in the front yard, about 50 feet from the front. The existing septic system is it's a septic tank to a distribution box to a soil absorption system. It's in the clouded area behind the house there. There is a pretty large wetland system in the back that we had delineated by a wetlands consultant. You can see the 25-foot buffer, 50-foot buffer, 100-foot buffer, and then the Board of Health's 125-foot buffer. And you can also see the well buffer in the front, the 125-foot Board of Health or a local buffer because the well is located uphill. And there is you can barely see 36 Wildwoods if you look to the what's that? Yeah, you can see I'm getting, yeah, somebody's breaking up. 36 Wildwoods well buffer is well outside. You can see it on the one corner over there as you head towards the end of the cul-de-sac by the 30-foot wide drain easement. So we're
here, all the way down here.
Yeah, so we're
there. Yep.
So we're far enough away from any abutting wells. So given the wetland buffers, the 125-foot, as well as the well buffer, I did my testing between that drain easement and the in that little area. It's a wooded area there to the left of the little between driveway turnaround. The soils weren't bad, as you know, in that area. I know there was some issues with blasting. It's pretty rocky. There's a lot of boulders. But the groundwater wasn't too bad. I think the highest I had it was 48 inches. So I designed an Elgin system. It's stepped trenches. It's in the ground, which is great. It will be pumped from the backyard. It'll go to the septic tank to the pump chamber, pumped up through, and then where it crosses the driveway, it will be sleeved in a Schedule 80 pipe, so it won't be damaged with, you know, if a vehicle sat on it or, you know, was parked there. So given those, the design, the only variances I had were local variances. They were basically all the groundwater variances, and I'm not sure. I did use an Elgin. I know that the local is the 5 foot. I'm going to 2 feet. I think that Claire wrote something that it's no longer a variance, but I requested it anyway to be safe. So I'll go through the variances now. Section 8.01 to allow the bottom of the soil absorption system to be installed 2 feet above seasonal high groundwater versus 5 feet, to limit the site disturbance, and an additional 2 feet with the use of the Elgin. And then it refers to number 2 below, section 8.01, again, to allow the bottom of the soil absorption systems to be installed 2 feet above the seasonal high groundwater versus 5 feet to reduce the site disturbance, eliminate walls, eliminate the need for a pump chamber, which it needs a pump chamber, that shouldn't be there. Reduce the setback and buffer encroachments. No additional flow is required above the existing 4 foot or 4 bedrooms. I'm proposing an effluent filter. I've started calling out 6-inch effluent filters just because I'm hearing from a lot of the pumping companies that they're clogging rather quickly. Typically you pump your septic tank every 2 years. The effluent filters are supposed to be inspected every 1 year, you know, every year, but we've seen cases where it's the lint from the wash machines is plugging them up. So we're starting to go with this more of a 6-inch filter. It allows a little bit more area to capture more there. So and also there's no garbage grinder allowed on this system. And then the last variance is section 8.02 to allow the soil absorption system to be in an area with less than 5 feet natural grade above high groundwater. I almost made it with one of them. It was 60 inches. So those are the only variances. There will be a deed recording to limit a deed notice for the Elgin system to limit the home to 4 bedrooms, as well as a garbage grinder, the deed notice, deed recording. That's about it.
All right, thanks. Mark, any
Yeah.
comments from you?
Basically, based on the lot, the wetlands, the distance to wells, this plan is appropriate. Not an easy design. Eric did my belief, a good job on this plan, and at the end, I will be recommending the plan to be approved with the deed recordings as noted, but I'll wait for the board to go through the variances first.
Questions from the board?
I don't have any. It looks like there wasn't a lot of choice on where to put this, and therefore
No.
the engineer has dealt with the conditions found.
Yeah, agreed. There's not a lot of space on that lot left. So limited options.
Right.
All right. Any other questions from the board or questions? So I guess first, any other questions from the rest of the board? Do we have any abutters present that have any questions? All right, not seeing any. Let's go through the variances. So first, do I have a motion to approve a variance to Sherborn section 8.0 subsection 1 to allow the bottom of the SES to be 2 feet above seasonal high groundwater versus 5 to limit site disturbance with the use of the Elgin?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell.
Oh, Rebecca, can you mute one of your, there we go. I think you said aye, Rebecca. We got some feedback. Okay. Daryl?
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve a variance to Sherborn section 8.01 to allow the bound of the SES to be 2 feet above seasonal high ground versus 5 for the listed reasons. And with the effluent filter and the garbage grinder. So what is different actually about this one?
I think they
Uh,
could be combined.
Yeah,
I
Go
think they
ahead,
can be combined, right? Okay.
yeah, it was, for a while they were separated and then I think we combined, I can't remember.
Yeah. So this is the same as the variance we just did.
Correct. I think at
Yes.
one point, Eric, you were putting in the state waiver and then you were putting in
Yeah.
the local waiver. I think they could be combined and they're the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's fine. We just passed the first one for the local waiver. So then do I have a motion to approve variance to section 8.02 to allow the SES to be in an area with less than 5 feet natural grade above high groundwater?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right. So with that, we close the variance hearing. It sounds like per Mark, the plan's are ready for approval.
Yes, I recommend approval of these plans based on the variances that were just granted, conditional to 2 deed recordings. One prohibiting the use of a garbage grinder and the second deed recording for the use of an alternative technology, the Elgin drains, with the limitation that the house remain at the 4 bedrooms.
Do I have a motion to approve the plans with the conditions Mark just listed?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, I.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
All right. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we've got 20 minutes in here. I think we can maybe pick up some agents business. Mark, where would you like to start?
Whoever was here first, I really wasn't paying attention. I believe someone was planning to be here for 50 Hunting Lane. I know the applicant for 85 Maple is here and 53 Kendall, we heard them. But I don't know who got here first. I would suggest that we go in the order if the person for 50 Hunting Lane is here.
Okay, I think that's what we'll do.
Excuse me for one moment. It's 43 Kendall Lane.
Yeah, that is a mistake. It is 43 Kendall Avenue. I think we have it right on the rest of our documents. Just it's a mistake.
Okay.
Yes.
I think. Well, I can't edit it, but yes, 43 Kendall Avenue. We have the letter right for that. So let's start with 50 Hunting Lane. So Mark, what is the
So a preliminary building review was completed for this property. The applicant wishes to add a room over the garage. The extra room will have a full bathroom. I did ask the designer to put the bathroom in. It was hard to see on the original plans. Presently, this is over the garage, entered through a hallway, I believe, to the garage. It's not entered through the second floor where the other bedrooms are, but it still would be considered under our review as a full bedroom based on the full master bathroom is why it's considered a bedroom. And that would not be allowed based on the design flow of the house. They wanted me to bring it to the board to see if there could be any consideration or suggestions. I mean, I would suggest they remove the full bathroom and go to a half bathroom, but I'll leave that up to the board.
So the existing system, this is a little tough because we didn't really have existing plans. We sort of had existing plans. There's definitely this additional room with a full bathroom, but the existing plans, what I have are this. which it was hard for me to count rooms or count bedrooms. But it looks like, what size is the system right now?
It is existing for a 3-bedroom.
So it's existing for a 3-bedroom. And
yeah,
so what's drawn here are, there are 3 bedrooms already.
yeah. And just so the board knows, I do have the full plan. It may not have gotten populated on it because that came in a while back.
Okay.
Present plan shows on the first floor, pardon the sound of the paper, a main bedroom on the first floor to the left, on the first floor, a living room to the back, a kitchen near that living room, to the front, but on the opposite side, because that's the middle of the house. And to the other side is a family/den, all wide open, so a family room, I would call it. So as I can see, the first floor, it has 4 rooms, and in those 4 rooms, there is a bedroom.
Okay. And that's a bedroom because it has an attached full bath, I assume.
Let's see. Yes, that is correct. It has a vanity, and it has a tub. Yes, that is correct. And they labeled it as a bedroom as well.
Okay. So based on 1 bedroom on the first floor, existing 2 rooms on the second floor, that's already at a 3-bedroom system. And so adding another room with a full bathroom would put them to 4, and so that wouldn't be allowed.
That's correct. What they would have is 6 rooms total. They indicated there's no finished basement room. And if anyone's here for it, if you want to correct me, feel free to, but that's what I was told. And they would look for the 7th room, but the problem is the 7th room over the garage is considered a bedroom based on a master bathroom, or the full bathroom.
And then just to clarify, Mark, again, because these plans were a little non-standard, the access to this room, it looks like, is from a stair.
That's correct. They're
So it's
showing
not directly accessed from the second floor.
They're showing it going through this hall. I don't know if it's focusing right, but there's a hallway. Okay. Yeah, you can see that hallway in the first floor.
This stair from the first floor extends up here
Yes.
into the second
Correct.
floor. So I think, I mean, from my perspective, a full bath is a definite no-go because that puts them at 4 bedrooms, and so that's beyond the capacity of their system. There is the question about whether the second floor room over, there's always the question that comes up about whether the second floor room over the garage gets counted as a bedroom because of our rule to count any room above the first floor. In general, we have not counted those if it is sort of separate access from the second floor. But I think there's debate on that topic still too. What do others think on the board?
No, I think you've described it appropriately. If there was not a full bathroom here, when a second floor room is disconnected from other second floor rooms, which implies the connection to a bathroom, then we have treated it as if it was a first floor room. So I agree that if this was a half bath, it would remove that problem. And I think I'd also want to see just a confirmation of the actual floor plan of the main first floor, because even though there may be a great room, we have often looked at functional areas in those rooms and not always treated it necessarily as one room. So just to confirm that, to be consistent with others, that the room count still comes out reasonably. But I think there's wiggle room, right? Because we're up to 7 with this room, and with they could have 8 rooms and a 3-bedroom home, correct?
As long as it's a newer post-Title V system, right, Mark?
Yeah, this is an older system, so they would only be allowed up to the 7. If it was a newer septic system, they could go to the 8th room, but this is a 7th room per the room count.
Okay. All right, so that would also make that clarification of the existing first floor important. And I see hand up for
Britt Phillips, you have a hand up. Is that about this property?
I believe this might be the applicant.
It is. Go ahead, Brett, if the board recognized
Britt, you can go ahead. You're muted right now, though. Excuse me. Okay, I don't know if Britt is not there or not hearing us or not speaking.
And just so the board knows, the septic system is dated back to 1975. There's a three.
So it sounds like, I mean, unless I haven't heard from other members of the board yet, but I'm taking silence to mean agreement, which maybe I shouldn't do.
No, I agree, Matt. Definitely no full bath. I think, given that it is separate and the access is exclusively, it's not via the second floor of the existing house, that that can be a finished space, but it can't have a full bathroom.
No, I concur also. I was just thinking, gee, with a full bath, it would make a great apartment. So no, no full bath.
Yeah, agreed. And I agree with Daryl that if they come back, I'd want to see full plans. Which it sounds like Mark has, we just didn't get in time.
We could word it differently, whereas if they have a full bath, they would just need to upgrade their septic system.
Always another option is that they could upgrade their septic to add another.
So they just need to know that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, Rebecca.
And yeah, that is good because Julie made a good point about the basement level, if there is one, and what that looks like.
I think Mark had said that it is unfinished. Is that correct, Mark?
I believe that's what the builder told me, but we would want to confirm that.
Okay, so I think our conclusion here is no full bath. We'd be happy to re-review without the full bath and with access to the full plans. And as always, the owner has an option to upgrade the septic alternatively. Any other questions on that one? Okay. Should we talk about 85 Maple? I can find, are there plans for this one?
85 Maple, it's a bedroom count as well. The applicant is building a new house at 85 Maple Street, has submitted these floor plans that are at the building department, within the building department application. And second floor, this is I have to pull the plan, but I believe this is a 5-bedroom house, and they show the first floor with the room count as a dining room, guest room, great room, kitchen. I did explain a kitchen separate from the great room, as well as I'm trying to see the library. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if that's the way the board sees it.
Yep, I see kitchen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with one being a bedroom. Because it looks like this is a suite with an attached bathroom.
That is correct. Yes, thank you. It's correct.
So that's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms, 1 bedroom.
Yep.
And then the second floor looks to me like 1, 2, 3, 4 additional rooms.
Correct. And there's 4 rooms total on that. There's an opening to the
sorry.
Yeah.
5 rooms. I missed the bonus room over here.
Room. So that's where the issue became, is now we have the office that is being proposed. So you have 6 bedrooms by definition, the one on the first floor and the 5 on the second floor. With that said, it's a 5-bedroom design and it exceeds that. And it's the office that is creating a room count issue in respect to bedroom count, I should say, not a room count issue. Because you have 10 total, which is fine. I'm not for sure if they're planning to finish the basement, but they have up to 11 rooms they can have, but no more than 5 rooms over the first floor if there's no bedrooms on the first floor, which there is. So they can only have up to 4 rooms on the second floor per this plan setup. And the question the owner had was the office, and the only thing I could offer was to maybe make it part of the hallway as a nook, without any walls towards the hallway space. But I said we'll review it with the board and see how the board might see this proposal.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, we're stuck with 1, 2, 3. I mean, as it is, if that office remains a room, there are 5 rooms upstairs. I mean, alternatively, if that first floor room no longer has a bathroom, right? So if this is if this becomes a first floor office without a bathroom, without a full bathroom, then we still have 10 total rooms, and 5 on the second floor is 5 bedrooms.
Correct. Or they could combine the 2 bedrooms. There's all different options
Yeah, or
available.
they could combine these 2 into 1 bedroom, but I think it's too many bedrooms.
Yes, I agree. And if there was and it is a little tricky, they show a door, right, on the first floor leading to it's like a guest room suite.
Correct.
That was just a hall. Bathroom was across the hall. That could be an office. But
They have
the
options.
narrowness and just the ease of putting a door at the end is a little concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there are a number of ways to reduce the number of bedrooms here, and I think they'd have to just decide what is most palatable to them. I assume they already have a septic built, so they probably don't want to build a new one.
And I believe the homeowner or the owner of this property is here. I don't know if he had any questions. I'll leave that up to the board if you wish to entertain a question or two from the owner.
Any other questions or comments from the board first? Okay, is that Lee Cavallo? Is that the owner? With the
That
hand
is-
up?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So, yes, totally understand your concern. I think if you just flip to the second floor page, if you don't mind. So, I mean, of course we are, I mean, ideally we wanted to make this an office just because, you know, I make my living from working from home, but that being said, I do understand if there's nothing that could be done to mitigate this. I think one of the other options would be to just not have a door to the office, to make it a doorway.
I think a doorway is probably not enough.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, a lot of our, and it wouldn't be consistent with our past practice. I think a lot of what we have to think about is potential future use, and I think just leaving the door off makes it too easy to just port a door on. I think opening that completely into the hallway and not having walls, then we would say that's just a big hallway with sort of a sitting nook, and that we've approved before. Alternatively, eliminating the bathroom here would then make this not a bedroom because it's a first floor room.
Do you mind if I just ask a question? Would it make a difference because this is new construction, we haven't put in the septic, we haven't done anything. So, I mean, what if it was a double doorway, like a 96-inch opening of sorts?
On the second floor?
On the second floor.
So yeah, like a 96-inch opening to the office, or
like a cased opening here.
Yes, correct.
I mean, a 6-bedroom septic solves all your problems, but that's more expensive. But it solves all your problems.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really fully know what would need to be done to even change that at this stage. But we have not implemented the septic. So, and I know that there was some information around like the room over the garage that was stated earlier about how that's counted. I didn't fully grasp that, but
so is this bonus room over the garage here? I don't really, yeah.
Yes. So flip to the first page, you might like the exterior view, you might get a better, it's an L. House is an L, sorry.
It's actually easier for me to look at it this way.
Through the hall into that room, correct?
Yeah, so the difference between this and the last one is that the last one didn't have access from that space above the garage to the second floor of the house, whereas this is just directly connected. And so that's like if somebody has a barn with a second floor finish, we don't count that as a bedroom, for example. But this is directly connected to the house. I mean, alternatively, if you don't finish that space and it gets used for storage, that also gets you there. But that's a lot of like unfinished space than you have.
Totally. I mean, I mean, I as I said, I don't really know what would need to be done at this stage to, you know, beef up the size of the septic, but you know, the question would be if it's an issue to either, I guess, like 2 options. I was thinking like shrink or add a 96-inch doorway, or maybe like shrink the room down to, you know, something like 70 square feet.
So, I mean, I guess technically if it's less than 70 square feet, it's not counted as a bedroom, although I think under our regulations, we still do. I mean, I think the way you get around it is totally opening up that space so that it is not easily convertible by someone directly into a bedroom.
Yeah,
And
with doorway, is that what you mean?
so like removing all of these walls or a half wall or something like that so that there's no privacy. I think even a cased opening is a little borderline for me. Because it's just too easy to put a French door in there and then it's a bedroom.
And the shrinkage of space would not be possible because of the interpretation of what a bedroom is if it was shrunk down to 70 square feet.
Well, it'd have to be under to meet per the housing codes, but
yeah,
again, the board still has that definition. Any room over the second floor is considered a bedroom. Maybe a laundry room with laundry room equipment in there, say it's 65 square feet. That helps. But
Yeah.
Or a
outside of
closet
that,
without a window. We've done.
yes.
Yeah.
The other option is
It's
if the
tricky with-
office was
Sorry.
part of a master bedroom suite where there was only one door in and it led you to then master bedroom, office, and bath.
Yeah, we then generally count that as one room if it's all part of one suite.
All part of one suite. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right, so just gather if the entire wall, like where that curve is, like from point to point, so was opened up or the room was shrunk, those are not two viable options.
So I think if this entire wall goes, like all of this space, and it becomes effectively part of the hallway, then I think that works. I think just a double door does not really quite work. Shrinking the space that one's going to be trickier. I think it's going to be hard to get all of us to say yes. We'd have to sort of see the details on that.
Yeah, I think it's just tricky these days with everyone working from home.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand the need for it, but I think the problem becomes the next person says, oh, great, this is like a nursery.
Sure, and I guess
Right, we have to look
there's no
at it.
bearing about the closet, like the lack of closet or anything has no bearing.
No, lack of closet has no bearing.
Yeah, I mean, if it were to get shrunk, it would just it would probably just make it a perfect square, and that would likely, I think it's 3 feet that has to be taken off it. Right now it's 108 square feet inside the space. So
yeah, I think the trick really is that the definition of a bedroom in Sherborn is any space on the second floor, and where we've not used it as if it clearly has another function, meaning like it has no windows, so it's clearly a closet, or it has laundry installed, so it's clearly a laundry room.
Or it doesn't
Or
have
it's
a
open
window.
so that there's no privacy. That's sort of how we've handled this in the past.
And if there was an entire 96 to 100 inch doorway,
I mean, I think if this entire wall is gone, that becomes easier. If it's a double door that I can like go to Home Depot and buy a double door and put it up myself in an afternoon, like that becomes problematic. See what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
you don't need a permit to do that, and so then it becomes easy for someone to convert it back.
yeah, no, it would be if you see where, I can,
Like I think if this whole wall is gone, and there's maybe a wall here, then I think you could get people to buy into it. But this is sort of where we're at.
Should could show you a picture if it helps, and show you what that might look like. I don't know if that's.
I mean, if what you're going to show me is a picture with a 108-inch opening, I can visualize that.
Okay, so what would be the next? So the 100-inch opening is not viable. I'm guess I'm a little bit lost.
I don't think so. What do others think?
I do think it's tempting to make it into someone else, to make it into a room. We need to look at the long-term use of the spaces, not how any one family who lives in a space is using it.
This is, and just for context, this is a modular home, so it's not framed on site. So like what gets decided is what gets implemented. If that has any bearing.
Right. But like even if it's a modular home, someone can put a door in there. Like modular homes don't prevent future intervention. So I think what we're telling you is that office needs to be completely opened. We need to eliminate a bedroom some other way, like you could combine these two into one large bedroom and then you don't have a problem. You could eliminate the bathroom down here and put the office down here, and then that becomes not a bedroom. And then you don't have an issue up here. Or you can have a bigger septic. Those are sort of, I think, the ways to get there.
And a bigger septic requires
An engineer.
to redesign and go through the full approval steps, and I would imagine, or
Yeah.
Except it could be a revision,
Yeah.
and the engineer would hopefully have enough information to know whether it's a matter of adding another line, essentially, to your septic design.
I mean, since this is new construction, it presumably is a conforming septic plan without variances. And so my guess is that it could be as simple as adding another trench, and then that's a relatively straightforward thing. But that's something you could explore with an engineer.
Yeah. How many acres do you have there? Do you know how big your lot is, Lee?
two. It's two.
Two? Okay,
Yeah.
so you have capacity. It's just a matter of seeing if it can be engineered with the wetlands around you as well, and as well as the well distance and so forth. That would be something for your engineer to look at.
So I think I should note we're running over time because we have a variance that was scheduled 4 minutes ago. So I think those are sort of the options. I think as a next step, we would need to see revised plans with whatever you're proposing.
Okay, and if the walls are removed, I guess it would just be
Yeah.
enough. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Matt?
Yep. Sorry, Bob. Do you have a question about this one?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I just have 15 seconds, and that is, I just want to remind the applicant, who I have a lot of empathy for tonight, wanting to have a office to work from home is a pretty reasonable thing. I want to remind the board and our community that this system is designed for 10 humans to live in the house. 10 people can live in the house safely with a 5-bedroom system. And I think this is not right, what you're doing to people, when this guy's not gonna have 11 or 12 people live in this house because he has an office on the second floor.
Right. Maybe not, but I think
It's
at the end of the
designed
day,
for 10 people. So
I
anyway, that's all I
understand.
have.
Hey,
Well said.
Bob,
Yeah,
you know what?
yeah.
Like, it's been 4 years on the board. I got like an hour left. At this point, I understand how septic design works. We apply the rules the same to everybody.
I want
So that's what
everybody
we're
in
doing.
our community, Matt, it needs to be transparent that this system is designed for 10 people. That's all.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And every 5-bedroom system in the state per Title V is designed for 10 people. That is the way it's done. So I think what you're alluding to is that you think the board should not enforce in compliance with Title V.
No, that's
requirements.
I think, you know what? I think we don't need any more debate on this point. We are late for our variance hearing. Bob, I've heard you. It's designed for 10 people.
That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Everyone knows.
I appreciate that, sir. I mean, it's very challenging now that it's 2024 and 99% of the population works from home these days. So it's nobody goes into offices. So I really think that down the road, this is something that really should be.
I would argue that the 10,000 people I was at the hospital with today don't have that option. So anyway, we can move on.
I don't know. What
so let's move on to our variance hearing. Who do we have next? 62 Mill Street. Do we have the green cards for this one?
Yes, we do.
All right. Let me find it. There we go. All right. Is Dan here?
I believe Dan's here. I saw him earlier.
Can you hear me?
Yep. I can't see you, but I hear you.
I can.
Okay, so seeing it's 8:07, we'll open the variance hearing. Rebecca, do you have a question about this hearing?
At the end.
Okay, sounds
Hold
good.
on. At the end, I'd just like to make a comment.
Okay. All right, so the hearing's open. Dan, take it away.
For the record, Dan McIntyre representing the homeowner, April Contini. She is getting ready to sell her home that she lived in for quite a while and needs to replace her septic system. So the existing system is in the backyard, consists of a septic tank and we believe one leach line, based on the information that we could find. To orientate you, the Mill Street is over on the right-hand side. The house is kind of in the middle of the lot. The well is to the side, front side, down the bottom of the page. Yes. And then there was some wetlands delineated toward the rear of the lot. We dug some test pits in the backyard around the existing system. We found some good soils. The groundwater was at 6 feet below grade, so it met the Sherborn requirement. We're proposing to put in a standard Title V compliant system consisting of a septic tank, a pump tank, and 3 stone and pipe leach trenches. We meet the well offsets for the on-site well. The budding wells are far enough away that they don't even show up on the plan. We are asking for a couple of waivers to the Sherborn Board of Health, well, a couple of variances to the Sherborn Board of Health regulations related to the 5-foot groundwater offset. We're proposing a 4-foot groundwater offset in compliance with Title V. And we're asking for that because this is a walkout basement. And by raising the backyard up any more than we already have would cause a drainage issue at that walkout. The second variance we're asking for is the offset to the wetland. We're proposing an 84-foot offset, which is compliant with Title V's, which 50-foot is the minimum for Title V to be environmentally compliant. And we have gone through conservation and they have approved the design as you can see it tonight. So I think with that, I can open up to questions. It is a 4-bedroom design and staying a 4-bedroom design. So we're not asking for the +1 on this one. With that, I can turn over for questions.
Comments from Mark, and then we'll go to questions from the board.
At this point, no comment. As was discussed on that last septic plan, difficult site, wetlands, distance constraints, as Dan noted, conservation has approved this plan and his provisions to protect the wetlands. With that noted, I believe this plan is ready for approval, conditional to 1, the board granting the waivers, and 2, the deed recording. Thank you.
All right, questions from the board?
I think I have any. It looks, again, like this was one of the only spots to be able to put that.
Yeah, I agree with Daryl. I think it's a pretty constrained site.
All right. Rebecca, did you want to comment at this point?
Sure, I'm moving away because I'm having interference. I just wanted to say that one of the challenges that the Board of Health has is meeting state and local regulations. The laws are not written by us. We are trying to, there is no backup plan if something fails. And as you know, the soils in Sherborn have no extra capacity for an exploded overflowing septic system, which is why we follow the rules. And unfortunately, we have no backup ability if something goes wrong. And not only the homeowner themselves, but their abutters and potentially other people who live in Sherborn have a risk of contamination in their drinking water if something fails. So it's unfortunate, but it puts us in a difficult situation. And that's why we're recommending that people upgrade their septic systems when they want to put on an addition, or if they're reaching the capacity of their existing structure, not because we want to do
Rebecca,
it, but
is
because
this
that's what
about
the
this
rules
current,
say.
Rebecca? I'm getting the sense this is more about the last topic than the current one. Is this about the current topic?
No, that's
Okay.
why I said I would do it at the end, but you asked
Okay,
me to
let's,
speak, so.
I thought you had a comment on this variance hearing that I
Nope.
just opened. So let's finish talking about the variance hearing.
Sure.
Okay, great. So if no questions about this, let's take a look at the variances. Find them. All right. Are there any questions from any abutters to this property? All right. So do I have a motion to approve a variance to Sherborn Regulation 8.0 Section 1 groundwater offset to be 5 feet, 4 feet provided per Title 5 for the reasons stated?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Just mention that being able to preserve more trees also helps with uptake of some of the nutrients, such as nitrogen, that can be discharged into the ground by these systems. So, nice perk of this.
All right. So if no further discussion, Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve a variance to Section 10.2 wetland offset to be 125 feet, 84 feet is provided. This meets Title 5 and is noted has Conservation Commission approval.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
All right. So with that, we'll close the variance hearing. Mark seemed to suggest that the plans are ready for approval.
That is correct, conditional to a deed recording for the prohibition of the use of a garbage grinder.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the plans as presented, conditional to deed recording, preventing a garbage grinder?
So moved.
Seconded.
If no further discussion, Matt Beaver's aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Darrell Beardsley, aye.
All right. Henceforth, I will request deed recorders prohibiting garbage grinding. All right. Thanks a lot, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
And obviously,
Very nice.
Okay, so let's go back to our agenda if no other questions.
Matt, I believe we have one more under my business item. We do have one item that I believe
Yep.
43 Kendall that the
Yep.
I think the trustee is here, so if you can, I would see.
Yes, I am.
Sounds good. So just for context, we had this request to install an irrigation well here at the condo complex at 43 Kendall. This currently gets public water. This was presented to us earlier, and we asked for sort of clarification on why the well was being requested, and we received this letter. Did the board have a chance to review this? Hopefully.
Yes.
Okay, and I think we're happy. I mean, I think I'm fine to hear sort of comment from the applicant if there's anything they want to add to what's presented here.
No, only that because we are on Framingham Water and Sewer, the charges are astronomical, so therefore we cannot do anything with the lawn because of the cost that it's incurred over the years. And so our plea is to let us have a well so that we can take care of the grounds without having the hardship of a high amount of money each year.
Barbara, were there other options for reducing your water use considered?
Well, somebody mentioned filling buckets, but I don't think people that are in this building that are a lot of them are senior, in any way could get involved in trying to get the land done, that way. And to hire people, we're back to the same situation that we would be in by just leaving it to Framingham Water and Sewer. I think if we didn't have the sewer charge, it probably would have worked out fine. But there's so many wells in Sherborn, I can't see, the negative of having a well here for the purpose of, taking care of the grounds.
If I could ask a question.
Yes, you can,
Yeah,
surely.
I have to go through the chair. Is that okay, Matt?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm on city water and I'm just curious. I know I garden. There is the opportunity to not be charged for the sewage if you have your outside spigots separately metered. Because every time you use your water, no matter
I
if it's
know that.
outside, do you have your
I know
outside
that.
spigots? Are those
No,
outside?
we do not. No, we do not have, first of all, we don't have enough outside spigots, number one. Number two, that is a very costly, looking into that's costly. This building has a tremendous amount of repair. Just to give you a side effect, we just $250,000 for the roof this year. And it's just unfair that we can't utilize the groundwater that is in the ground. It goes right back in. So I don't understand why a well would be a negative at all, especially in Sherborn.
So I think in general in Sherborn, we've not allowed separate the reason this is being discussed is we've not allowed separate irrigation wells, and that's because the groundwater is a limited resource, which is largely used for drinking water. I think, we should point out that having said that, we do allow under our current regulations 1 well per property, and there is not currently a well on this property. And so that's, I think, why we're discussing this.
Correct.
Drilling, let me finish and then I've got some board comments too. Drilling a well itself is going to be expensive. And so it's unclear to me that drilling a well would be that much more expensive than separately metering an irrigation system.
Well, we have to put in more silcox, which are unfinished area. We don't have enough silcox to take care of it either. So we would have to put in a new water lines in the lower level, which is a finished basement area.
Got it.
So, that's another reason. The original request was wanting to have a well to also have water in the property for other uses, especially drinking water, putting in filters and whatnot. And we've looked into that, but we just, in terms of what we thought would be approved would be, a well for the grounds. If we could have a whole well, well, then we could put in a whole well and just have to borrow the money to do it. We're trying to avoid that.
Rebecca, did you have a question?
It is a hardship. We received a 40.
I have a comment. Has have the residents of the building or the managers or whoever's in charge of the grounds looked into collecting rainwater? Gray water can be collected and used for irrigation purposes, and that would be very economical. There are a lot of companies that, that sell these products that can be placed under the gutters and just collect the water.
And how do you get it to the grass and around the rear and into the
You connect it to a hose.
You connect it to an irrigation system.
But who's going to water it? Who's going to water it?
So who's going to water the grass from the well is my question.
We have a sprinkler system in the ground here.
So you put the sprinkler system on it.
You need it pressurized.
Yeah, you need to pressurize for rainwater, but if you have an existing, I guess my point is, like, if we have an existing sprinkler system, you don't need to install new silcox. You just need to connect the sprinkler system up to the thing. So I think we understand that this is expensive. We just want to make sure all options have been explored. And then I think I've got 2 more from the board that want to comment before we sort of go back to additional comments. So I think
can I just comment for 1 minute?
I really need to go to the board first, and then we'll
All
recognize you again. So I think Daryl was next, and then Julie, and then Diana.
I'm just, I have a couple of things. One is, are you or any of the residents raising food on the property?
No.
Okay, so I would say that most
Raising flowers, but not
properties,
for.
most properties in Sherborn are not irrigating their lawns and their gardens, except for times when you're establishing a new planting. Then you do need to do some watering. But for the most part, we get a lot of rain here. And the concern that we have with irrigation wells is that the time that people want to use them the most is during a drought. And that is the worst time to be watering a lawn, is when really the water should be conserved for essential needs.
Well, the same system can occur by having a regards toward the well, and knowing that when you have a drought, you do not water on a daily basis, or even in some cases 3 or 4 days, sometimes a week. You know, I grew up in a well in Wayland, and I understand that you put a ban on it, and we could cooperate in that level. So that's another thing.
And I would say that the current method of irrigating landscapes, even for when they are doing something for a place that just has a particular cosmetic aim that they're after, and it's only cosmetic, is daily watering is not the right way to go, because it promotes very shallow root growth. And so that is a waste of water, truly, and a lot of the water is lost to evaporation when you're, as opposed to uses within the home that then go out to the septic system and are re-infiltrated into the ground. So those are the concerns that we have about irrigation.
Well, we don't have a
Again,
septic. We have sewer here.
Yes, I understand.
We're not on
that.
septic. Oh, okay.
But I'm just addressing more the issue of it doesn't necessarily all go back into the ground in the same way. And again, we don't irrigate at all on my property, and the lawn is lush. So, except during times of drought, and then it survives because the roots are very deep.
Well, we
now, I know
don't
it's
have
possible.
All right,
One house
so
versus an apartment, complex that this is, with seniors in it. It's not as easy as a home, to monitor.
okay, so I think I want to keep going through the board. Julie, go ahead.
I was connecting back to my original question, Barbara. I appreciate
Yeah.
there's a need to reduce the cost of water. And it sounds like there's a willingness to do an upfront cost to make this a more sustainable outlay over time. One of the alternatives, and I'm going to also connect to what Daryl said, which is in the face of climate change, while we might be anticipating greater precipitation with higher temperatures, we're ultimately going to have greater evapotranspiration. And so our groundwater resources, which, as Matt said, are very limited, really are being protected for domestic water supplies for drinking water. My question really is, there are landscape designers who do drought-tolerant landscape designs that are absolutely beautiful. And I would wonder if, instead of reducing your water costs by drilling a well, which is pretty costly, if instead you had a landscape designer look at it, find more drought-tolerant plantings that would also be beautiful for the residents to enjoy.
Been there, done that. I can tell you that we've done that, and it is more expensive to do that than it is to put in a well. I think having had a background that I have, I am a contractor. I've done many wells, and I've done many things over the course of time. I am trying to, budget-wise, keep this property in a level where it doesn't look the way it looks now. And that's because the town of Framingham, or the city of Framingham, basically had billed us $60,000, which we have just caught up with because they had a broken meter. So it started out with that. So looking into the well and looking into the efficiency and being mindful that the lawn once a week getting watered is probably, with the well, will pay back itself along with the solar on the roofs and, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm very mindful of what you're saying, but I think that your cost level of where you're looking, when you get cost to prove to me that it's cheaper to get all that you have just talked about than the well, I would, then I would say, okay, but we really have the prices of the well, the water level and so forth in this area. And I just can't imagine to deny, you know, the seniors in this building a decent looking lawn, and also to do it at a reasonable cost. Alec?
I think the argument we're making here is that we in general have not approved irrigation wells throughout here because of a desire to preserve our groundwater for drinking water. And so a decent seniors having a decent looking lawn, well, I want them to have that. I think we want to ensure that all alternatives are exhausted. Because and I think in general, when we had additional wells, we wanted to prove that there's no adverse effect on neighbors who may use groundwater. And if you're drawing down a bunch of your well to irrigate, then you could be impacting neighbors as well. And so that's why we've not sort of prioritized irrigation as a reason for a well. I think I need comments from Diana, and then we can come back to you, Alec.
Thank you. I have another comment too.
Okay, sorry, Rebecca, I missed your hand, went back up. So Diana, Rebecca, Alec.
Yeah, and I think my comment was addressed. I was just going to ask Barbara why do you have to have a lawn? Could it be some other way or some other plantings put there so it isn't grass, it isn't something that has to be watered?
At the front of the building,
because I do understand. I mean, the bill that's in the letter, that is humongous. I could well appreciate that you would not want to pay that amount.
And it's continual. That's why it's continual, because of this, you know, the way they build. But anyway, we have two driveways, an entrance and an exit. We have a very small front area lawn, but we have beautiful trees, and they're drying out. We had to remove 5 trees on the property because they were so dry. I just think that it would be, if it means that we have to have a well for the whole building and if of drinking water, then maybe we look into that and get purifying and all of the things that are necessary for that. But I do think that we cannot continue to be hooked up to Framingham and to pay these prices where, you know, the condo fee, these people are retired and older, and the condo fee just has to keep going up to pay the town of Framingham. I mean, I just paid off for the town of Framingham. I manage the finances, and I just paid off the town of Framingham down to now $6,000, which was originally $48,000. Okay, last year.
So I think we all appreciate the financial constraints here. I think sort of it is not as simple as just right. It's not as simple as just switching over to having a well, right? You then become a well that's regulated as a public water supply, given the number of people that are managing it. A well doesn't mean free water, right? A well means you have to cost to install the well. There's a cost to maintain the well. If you're supplying drinking water to everyone, there's a cost to regularly test it and manage treatment systems. And
oh
so
yeah, that I understand. That's why I asked for it for just the lawn. But if we have to go that distance, I would believe we could beat the town of Framingham's numbers in the end.
All right, Rebecca, did you have another question? And
anyway.
then Rebecca, did you have another question? Then we'll go to
Yeah,
Alex.
I just want to say that in the couple minutes that we had this conversation, I did a little search, and rain barrels range from $70 to a couple $100. And there are 5 or 6 companies that just pop up that can connect a rain barrel. So collecting your rainwater from your gutter to a sprinkler system. So you might be able to do all of this for a fraction of the cost of what you're talking about. Anyway, I'd recommend that.
I will agree that rain barrels can generally not be used for lawn.
Where would the rain barrels go?
So rain barrels generally can't be used for an existing lawn sprinkler system because they're not appropriately pressurized. So that is a little more complicated. It would involve reworking of the irrigation. Alec, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, how you doing? My name's Alec Chongas at Chongas Engineering. I'm working with Barbara on this property. Do you mind scrolling down a little bit to the bottom of the letter? Thank you. So there's a couple questions here. I'm a little concerned or confused with the board. A lot of these questions they're bringing up are great topics. I just don't necessarily see how they relate to public health. And that's where I want to stand right here. We have 24 units here, so possibly up to, you can correct me, Barb, with the amount of taxpayers we have in Sherborn. We're all on public water and public sewer. I think that denying them the fact to let them use a well for irrigation is a little bit of a push. If you can see on this radius, it's about 800-foot radius. That's excuse me, an 800-foot radius at the property, and we can see there's very limited houses nearby. There's Sunshine Farm, and all these 3 other properties are owned by the same owner of Sunshine Farm based on the GIS tax parcel maps. So the drawdown effect I see being a very limited a very low case. And again, it's a very small lawn. It's not huge. The irrigation, the amount of water being consumed isn't that great. And Barbara does bring up a good point. If she were to go into, excuse me, if she were to try to avoid going on town water in Framingham and using a normal well, you're going to be having a lot of additional water being drawn up, opposed to just allowing an irrigation well for the limited use of lawn.
So thanks. So I don't think anyone would propose you switch over to well for everything. I think that's not a good choice. That really is not feasible. And I think we haven't yet denied it. I think that the discussion is less around this particular circumstance than being consistent with our practice and our regulations. And to be honest, I'll say my own opinion. Like, I'm conflicted on it. We have generally not allowed irrigation wells, but that's generally been in the context of an existing well on a property. And our current regulations allow for 1 well on a property. And so I'm actually not sure we have standing to deny this. That's my own personal opinion. I would still advocate for minimizing water use over drilling an irrigation well 100%, but I also want to make sure we follow our regulations. I see Julie has a comment, then I'll go to you, Bob.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one, Matt. While in reading the regulation that it's 1 well per property, I read that as 1 domestic water supply per property for human consumption. I don't view that as, if you already have public water, that automatically means you can then grow a lawn by another well. I don't agree.
Okay, that's a good point. Bob.
Yeah, I'd like to address the issue of precedent, because I think the Board of Health tries very hard to be consistent. Within the last year, you approved 2 what were to be very, very large irrigation wells at the Laurel Fields. They were intended to provide in peak dry season 20 to 30,000 gallons of water a day to irrigate the Laurel Fields. And we've got some older folks living up in this community, and you're not going to let them have a nice garden when you are willing to permit 2 irrigation wells for the town for playing fields. The lack of consistency in this case, I think, is just breathtaking. And by the way, you said you never approve irrigation wells. You approved an irrigation well at Abbey Road.
I didn't say we never do. I said we generally don't.
Okay, you approved an irrigation well for a very similar sized community, Abbey Road.
And we haven't denied this one yet, but thank you.
Okay.
I always
But
appreciate
I think the Laurel Fields vote within the last year is pretty significant to this call.
Thanks, Bob. Daryl?
When we approved the installation of the wells, we were explicit that we were not improving their use for irrigation. That remained to be seen when more plans came in, and we've been advocating for improving the soil so that survival of the grass would not rely on irrigation. So we were clear about that.
Well, you should have told the Recreation Committee, because they spent $150,000 of our tax money drilling these wells, if you weren't going to permit them for irrigation, because that's what they intended.
They spent ARPA money, but that's a fine point, and I agree that
That would be tax money
the
as well, I'll remind you.
a debate for another setting. So Matt, I don't know.
I mean, I think we can go.
I'll
I think
say that-
I am personally just reviewing our definitions of wells, because we did in our recent regulation change the label from domestic water supply to water supply. And we define well as anything, basically any source of water to be used for any purpose of supplying water in the town of Sherborn, include but not limited to dug wells, driven wells, drilled wells, or the various other things. I don't actually I'm still disagreeing with you, Julie. I actually don't think we limit it to use for human consumption. Rebecca, are you talking? You're muted. Rebecca, did you want to say something?
Yeah, please. I think it does become a issue of public health if we're depleting the domestic water supply for the individual homes by a residence that has public water supply available to them. No one else has it available. So I think we have to think about the risks of depleting the aquifer for large numbers of people and endangering the neighbors. I think that's the issue for Board of Health.
Yeah, I think
I agree as well, but I think it's very limited.
Would you have
Well,
approved?
Well, let's.
They need to collect rainwater before they come back to us for this.
Okay. So just to, Rebecca, can you mute because we're getting echoes?
That's really prejudiced.
Okay, wait.
Wow.
So the question of public health, like it is the task of the Board of Health to regulate the water supplies in this town. So that is why it's a question of public health. It's like, this is well within our jurisdiction. So I think no one's questioning that. I think we're sort of at the point in which the action we need to take tonight is to sort of, I mean, we're not approving a well, but I think we're voting to say whether we would allow an irrigation. We would be voting to say whether we're allowing an irrigation well, because we would still need to see plans and the whole usual process for the well. So we're not approving the actual well, but I think the action for tonight would be to say whether we would allow a well to be placed on this property for use of irrigation. Is that what we would be voting up or down, agree on? And then
Yes,
Daryl, did you want to comment on that?
I think it would be getting a sense of the board, since we don't have a formal application before us.
Yeah.
And I guess, to me, you may be irrigating now, but again, I think most landscapes survive just fine without irrigating. So if you stopped what you were doing now, I imagine things would look pretty good. As for the trees that were dying, we did have a severe drought for a number of years. And so a lot of trees succumbed to that. And it also was aligned with the spongy moth infestation. And depending on the type of tree, that could have been the cause of death, which we saw a tremendous number of trees on our property die off at that time. And Sherborn was one of the hardest hit communities for that. But there's not, to me, there's not a necessity for irrigation.
Okay, so
and
I
there's
think
no demonstrated necessity.
Can I just say one more thing before you guys have your decision? So, obviously, this all comes at cost. So it's a possibility to look at the regulations. But if it's cheaper for our applicant to use a well for domestic, to use it for her whole entire 24 units, that may be a solution we have to go, which will be depleting the source of groundwater around the whole area at a higher rate. So that's just where we're at right now, because it's mostly coming down to cost. And as you can see, there's an 800-foot radius, and there's not too much single family homes nearby. And our neighboring community is Framingham, but that's all I got.
How many people live in this?
Barbara, can you say that?
We have 24 units and 26 people. And the range of age is 65 up to 95. And there's no way we would be able to, anyone here, okay, would be able to continue with this kind of money to Framingham, number one. Rain barrels probably there isn't enough situation for a person to believe that they could collect rain from rain barrels to do anything with, basically. I think you're making a judgment based on your own opinion of what landscape should be. All we're looking to do is to be able to keep the grounds of the property so that the investment that people have made and the taxes that they have paid stays in line. You didn't see this property a year ago or the year before. It was in very poor condition.
I mean, I drive by it almost every day, so I think it's hard
yeah,
to
you
me to
see
see it.
well, you can see. And last year, we had it, as much as we could, but it was recommended to us to get a well because it would be the only way that we could get the property, and it was in the ground, which we didn't even know.
Okay, so I think
anyway,
I think where we're at, I mean, I will sort of object to the nature that if we can't possibly
Crashing it.
collect enough rain to water our grounds, then like maybe we have a larger issue. But that doesn't mean it wouldn't be expensive to do so. So I think what we want to get from the board is a sense of the board about whether we would be open to approving an irrigation well were they to come forward with a full application. I don't know that we need a vote necessarily right now, but I think it would probably be good for a straw poll of the board with the knowledge that the board will be different next week.
it would be helpful.
Rebecca, do you have one more comment before we maybe just go around and do a roll call on this? You're muted.
No, it's okay. Never mind.
Okay. So I think we'll just go in our usual order and maybe just comment on where we're feeling on this. And so I will go first, and I will say that I agree with the sentiment that we should not need to irrigate necessarily, and there should be alternatives, and that if it is ultimately too expensive to maintain a lawn, that we shouldn't probably be maintaining a lawn, and that ideally, we are not spending a lot on irrigation. I think I felt similarly about the fields. Having said that, my interpretation of our regulation is that they would be allowed to install a well, and so I would ultimately allow it based under our current regulations and wanting to be consistent.
I got next.
Julie.
So I'm going to agree with you, Matt, that if it is too expensive to maintain a lawn or to irrigate, then I don't think that that's the method that we should be doing. I also come at this from the perspective of more sustainable landscaping practices. And I don't think that drilling a well, which ultimately does take from groundwater, that does provide somebody drinking water eventually. There's Prospect Street not that far away. I don't think that's where our water should be spent, and it is becoming an increasingly finite resource. I wouldn't support this.
Diane. You're muted, Diane.
I have trouble thinking that drinking water would go towards decoration. I really would prefer to see the landscaping changed. No, I don't do anything to my lawn, trees, and they're fine. So I would not support. I think we need to save the water for a drinking resource.
At Coolidge Street, at the building project on Coolidge Street, that would be great.
Which is going to be using public water, to be clear on that. Rebecca, what's your comment?
I would
from Framingham.
We have like $70 rain barrels at our house. We have hoses connected to them. We use sprinklers. It's free. It's not that hard. I really think you shouldn't be so offended. It's not that bad of an idea. And then it wouldn't have a risk of drawing down the aquifer, which would potentially concentrate the things that are in the water that make the problems for people with private wells. So
we would have to disconnect downspouts. You really don't understand. The downspouts are on the ground. They cannot be disconnected.
So first of all, just Barbara, first of all, we're going forward. We're going through the board.
I don't understand half the things you're saying.
First of all, I do understand how rain barrels work, and you don't have to take the downspout out of the ground. Second of all, we're going through the board right now.
They're not in the ground. Excuse me. I said they're laying on the ground, and there's no break in them. They go from the roof down right to the ground. So they'd have to be cut, at which point you risk something. You really have to understand.
So Barbara, we're trying to go through the board here.
Never mind.
We're trying to go through the board here and get a sense of things. All right, we haven't turned this down yet, but I think you're not going to win an argument by saying that you can't install a rain barrel because like people do it all the time. I don't know that it will supply your needs. I will agree with that, but like saying having to cut a hole in a gutter is probably not a good argument. Daryl,
I just wanted to finish my sentence. I just want to finish.
Oh, sorry, I think Rebecca's still finishing.
all I was saying is that it might be worth getting a consultation from somebody who does this for their living. They know a lot about different ways to solve these problems. They might be able to guide you, and you might find out that it's expensive, but then at least you've looked into it and it's worth considering. That's all I'm saying, because it's a sustainable way to achieve your goal.
I have looked into it. I am not illiterate. I have
I don't
looked
think anyone's
into
accusing you
every
of that.
possibility to save money for the people in this building. I'm a licensed contractor. I have been working 51 years with the Board of Health, and I've done a lot. I understand what you're saying, and I'm very aware that it is going to take some water out of the Framingham, because we're right on the ledge of Framingham. But the reality is that I'm asking you because we have a hardship. And in doing all the numbers, the well was the cheapest in the long run. With elderly people, it's even more cheap. And that's all I've done.
Barbara, I think no one is denying the hardship, and I think everyone appreciates that. I think the perspective of the board has to be, we have to apply things consistently throughout town, and in the end, you know, it is possible to interpret that we don't generally, again, not always, but we don't generally install irrigation wells, and it's not about your individual property, it's about things everywhere. And so I think we're still waiting to hear from Daryl, and then I'll maybe summarize the sense of the board.
And then can I speak what after? I have a question after that. After Daryl, please.
Okay, Daryl, go ahead.
Okay.
Your opinion on this?
So I keep thinking about my daughter and all the other people of her generation and what we're leaving for them, which is a mess. And we need to change our perspective on what we think the standards of excellence are. And it should be about preserving water, not about constantly watering to achieve something. Rebecca, can you turn off something? We're getting echoing. All right, I'm gonna, nope, still echoing.
Hey, Rebecca, can you mute your computer, please?
Oh, maybe I can mute her computer. All right, yes, better.
It's sounding better on this end, if that helps.
Yeah, okay. So I would go along with the things that Julie and Diana said in particular. We're looking at sustainability, long-term resilience, and things that aren't done just for cosmetic reasons.
All right, so I think to summarize the sense of the board, I think that everyone agrees that it is, if this is the hardship, one alternative is not to irrigate or to look at alternatives. And I think we all appreciate from the sense of sustainability, it would be better to look at alternatives. I think polling the board, I think we have 4 people who are generally opposed and probably would not approve this. I think I'm also generally opposed, but I would approve it because I think we did not explicitly ban irrigation wells in our regulations. And in the interest of being consistent, I feel like we would have to approve it. But that's a minority opinion. Even though I think in principle I am opposed to the use of water, I think we've got to apply things equally, and that's my interpretation. So I think that's where we're left.
Yep. Can I quickly speak before we close this up?
Yep.
So first thing is, again, we're gonna do the numbers. If it is cheaper and we're able to put a full domestic well for domestic use for inside the house and the irrigation well, that's the route we're probably gonna go, which is just gonna be lowering the aquifer drastically now in this town. But if that's the route the board wants to see us go, that's fine. My next question is, if there's this is just a hearing, so we're still able to bring a plan over to get approved and voted on after your election, and be like that the following week. That is correct, right?
Yeah. So I think we're not voting on anything because we haven't seen an application.
Absolutely. So we're
you're still welcome to bring in an application, and it will be voted on by the board at that time.
That sounds good.
And
that's all we have for now.
I will note that if you're going to bring in an application for a well to supply drinking water for this housing unit, you will need to go to Mass DEP because you will have tripped the threshold for.
Absolutely.
It will no longer be a private well.
Yep. That's great. Well, I think we're done here for tonight. Thank you guys for your time. We'll be in touch.
Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
All right. Doug, do you have a question about the well?
Yes. I have a question. Why is the chat disabled, or am I not understanding how this Zoom works?
The chat is, I think, disabled for our entire Zoom account for the town. We generally part of it has to do with sort of record keeping and that everything should be spoken aloud for the meeting.
That's not the way other committees work.
What do you want me to say? Our chat is disabled.
No, I'm pointing out,
I'm
I'm simply pointing out a fact that other committees like the Zoning Board of Appeals have a chat feature.
Okay, we have not enabled our chat feature, and it has been so that we can ensure that everyone is recognized and speaking when they want to speak. And I don't see the relevance of this to the discussion of an irrigation well.
Can I respond to that comment?
Is this related to the irrigation well? Because that's what the topic is.
This is I think this is an outrage. You're not letting Bob went on for 20 minutes about something that wasn't relevant to him. I have a relevant question. What's relevant to me? You're not gonna let me talk?
If it's relevant to the agenda item we're talking about, then yes. So if you have a question about the well, I think you can do that. If it's a question about how we run the meeting, then we're happy to put that on a later agenda.
We're going to put this on a later agenda.
And that's fine. And we can do that. I understand you have concerns. Bob's comments were in relation to the agenda topic. If you have a concern,
I'm critiquing his comments. I'm suggesting that a guy who didn't have a vested interest in that topic made a comment. He was allowed to speak. I'm not allowed to speak.
And I'm happy to let you comment if your comment is related to the agenda topic. If your comment is, if you feel enabling the chat has something to do with your ability to comment on the well, then that's fine.
Let me tell you what it does, and let me tell you why.
Okay.
If we were in an in-person meeting, I could lean over to the engineer gentleman who was just speaking and make a comment to him. I can't communicate with him. I have no way to communicate with him.
Yes, you saw his name and the company he works for. You can contact him.
It's so irrelevant if I can't talk to someone in the context of the conversation we're having. You're telling me to send him an email tomorrow? It's ridiculous. This is the reason why we should have in-person meetings.
Okay.
Discussions at a meeting are all supposed to be heard by everyone in the room.
So people in the audience in the town meeting can't lean to their neighbor and make comments to each other? That's absurd. That's ridiculous.
So I would like to.
It wouldn't be something important to be saying during the meeting, but we can address this at another.
So we're happy to put this. I hear your concerns.
You sat at town meeting and you didn't say a word to another person in the audience next to you.
So, Mr. Kingsley, I hear your concerns. In the interest of having an open discussion on this, we in fact are required to post topics we're going to discuss on our agenda. Happy to add this to the agenda for the next meeting. We can talk about it.
I have nothing else to say on the topic.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Shall we talk about Farm Road Homes? I believe that is the next item on our agenda.
Okay.
Daryl, do you want to lead off?
Sure.
Would it be? Is there anything that would be helpful for me to share from the public documents?
The applicant is interested in us approving the Title V septic system. I think that's difficult on a number of levels. One, the system proposed for use for the nitrogen reduction has not yet received approval from Mass DEP, so it's a little difficult to make that step forward with that still missing. And the mounding analysis has been done, but the peer reviewer has questions. The nitrogen loading analysis has been done, but has not been fully reviewed by the peer reviewer, who's still working on both of those and who mentioned that really the mounding analysis has to be resolved before they can move on to the nitrogen loading analysis review. I would say those are the main obstacles to us being able to approve the system. Or even
Yeah,
review it
I'd
in
agree.
any way
I haven't
with
seen
conditions.
I haven't seen the provisional use approval for the 13.5. And I know there are outstanding questions for the peer reviewer. I am interested in moving this forward, and I'm sorry we can't, but it does seem like we're missing information.
And Mark can give, if you'd like, can give an update on a meeting that was held last week to discuss, no, earlier this week to discuss.
That is, it was held on
some
Monday.
of the outstanding issues.
And we if that's okay, I'll go forward.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, thank you. We met on April 29th in the morning at the Board of Health office. We being Peter Dillon, Deshang Wang, Bob Murchison, Jeremy, our town administrator, and myself. We were there for almost 2 hours. We discussed several things, and Daryl, you wrapped up the majority of them right there. The STAR 13.5, that we have not yet received written confirmation from DEP that it's approved. We also discussed the need for, one need that came up several times was the engineer, Peter Dillon, noted the need for a cross-section of the septic system, the groundwater, and so forth, so he can conduct a groundwater mounding and nitrogen analysis. And he said that's vital to having the review. And he also had comments, Peter Dillon, on the saturated thickness. And he was going to look at some models that have been used. He, again, noted the need for that cross-section. He also indicated that he does not, let's see. Well, it was, he asked about the soil boring. He mentioned how other people, including some of the comments made, excuse me, I'm running with allergies right now, but he asked about the soil boring, and Bob's here. He can explain that he basically did not agree that he wants to do a soil boring to help out with the evaluation of the soil, including for the groundwater mounding, the nitrogen analysis, and the saturated thickness. There was some discussion on the basements, and because it was mentioned by Deshang Wang and Bob that there is ledge up near where the houses are going, the units, that Bob had noted if the units have ledge that they won't have basements. They are planning not to do any blasting, so that was noted at the meeting. There was also discussion on the Farm Road runoff, and it was mentioned by Deshang that he is planning to do the work needed to make sure any runoff from their site goes into a swale and into a basin near Farm Road on their property, so it doesn't interfere with any present issues on Farm Road. The need to put a note on the plan that this is not a groundwater discharge permit site was requested by Peter Dillon. He reviewed the Title V requirements for groundwater mounding, and he said he needs to have groundwater mound calculations, and the area of influence was discussed as well with that, and the need for updated nitrogen analysis, as Darrell just noted. So I'm just going through some notes I had. There was discussion, I'm going to be only a few more left here, to recheck the data before Peter will comment on the saturated thickness and explain to the applicant that he needs to demonstrate again on that cross-section the adjusted groundwater, the used sea mean level. So that was noted, and some of the last few comments were the use of an approved IA technology. It was noted by the engineer that because STAR 13.5 is not approved, the engineer noted that they're still considering that because any other approved technology in the view of the engineer was too expensive. We reviewed the information that we do need, as I noted before, the STAR to be approved by DEP and in writing. And last but not least, we reviewed the need to look at the Title V. Peter Dillon reviewed the need to review the Title V policies for aggregation for the present plan. And that's a summary of some of the notes from the meeting. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'll try to help.
No, I mean, that's helpful. I mean, I think I share a frustration at sort of how this continues to to go on, but I think we just do need some pieces of information before we can vote one way or the other. Anyone else on the board have comment?
I'll note that I think it would be hard to try to write conditions for things such as minus the approval from Mass DEP. We could start speculating on, would the conditions be identical to, say, the STAR 9.0, yes or no? And what if we write the conditions with that in mind and it turns out not to be that? It starts to get quite messy, I believe, to do that.
I agree. I'd rather it was a little bit cleaner. Bob, I see you there. I'll recognize you once I ensure there's no more comment from the board. Anyone else from the board have comments on this? All right, Bob, go ahead.
So a couple things. I'm not really going to get into kind of debating issue by issue tonight. I don't think that's healthy, and it's not my job anyway. And I think it's actually better to do a lot of this in writing, which we've been kind of going back and forth on. And I hope that the board has been following, because it's easier for me at least to really articulate clearly in writing. And so I've done that. Desheng has also done that. The back and forth between us and Tetra Tech is very, very typical. There's nothing unusual about that back and forth. That's the way the process works. And there were some of the things Mark said. I don't want to disagree with them because it was a little hard for me to understand them. So I'm not going to agree or disagree with them. I'll just leave them. The way I would characterize the conversation is that the peer reviewer, at the end of that meeting, was very, very comfortable with our application and our proposal. And I think you'll be reading that very soon. Desheng, Mark is absolutely right. One of the things the peer reviewer wanted to see was this cross-section. And that cross-section, I'm not going to get into the technicals of it, but basically it illustrates a lot of the kind of points that I think Desheng is trying to make. And I think the peer reviewer had a good idea to say, put this in a cross section and it'll really kind of go across a lot of different issues and be really helpful. What the peer reviewer said is, I'm comfortable with it. I like it. I think it's right, but I think you need to illustrate it, frankly, for you guys and for other more non-technical people. And so Desheng is in the process of doing that. I think he was very comfortable with the I don't even know the term, but basically the depths that we were using. The peer reviewer was very comfortable with that. He just wanted Desheng to kind of put more meat on the bone, more details, if you will. So I'm where I'm going with this is, well, I would love to have seen you take action tonight. I understand that you're not going to, and I respect that. What I would like to do is, and I think you'll appreciate this, Matt, let's have a plan for finishing this thing, right? You're going to vote however you're going to vote, and you, the board, and I understand that, and there'll be plenty of time, to talk about it after that, if that's necessary. But we need to get it done. So here's what I would propose to the board. I believe we're going to have answers, these details back that the peer reviewer was looking for. I would hope by toward the end of this week, or maybe at the latest, very early next week. The peer reviewer is ready to go, but he doesn't want to answer us. He wants us to actually, based on the meeting, kind of come back with this additional stuff that he's looking for. And then he's going to do one last reply. And I think what you're going to get from that reply will be something that along the lines of that they're very comfortable with the project and what we've proposed. And I think you'll be able to see that well before your next meeting. And what I would ask of this board is that it pay attention to the incoming documents and information over these next 10 days or so, and that the board be prepared to take action on this application. I guess it's 2 weeks from tonight. I would also ask that the board, really pay attention to the stuff I've sent you. Because like I said, I'm not here to talk engineering tonight, and I don't even think it's that use. I'm happy to bring Deshang if you want to pepper him with questions, but I really think it's more valuable for all of our information to you all to be in writing, and then you can evaluate everything that's in writing, and then ultimately there'll be a good record of all of our discussions, so that we can have further conversations if they're necessary, beyond your approval or disapproval. But I would ask this board if they could commit, obviously if we don't get our stuff in on time or the peer reviewer doesn't respond in time, then you'll have to reconnoiter. But I guess what I'm saying is I'd like you to commit to finish this thing 2 weeks from tonight. If we've gotten to the point where the peer reviewer has made his final comments, because frankly, I don't think there's anything more. I mean, you guys have, in sequence over the course of 7 months, asked a lot of questions, and we've provided a lot of answers, and there's been back and forth, and hasn't been that much fun for us. I'm sure it hasn't been that much fun for you. I understand that. So that's my ask of the board. My second question is more procedural. There is a possibility that when we return next, 2 of the current board members will no longer be participating. I'm not clear exactly how we can get how that's going to work. And so, I don't know if this board has considered that situation and how they're going to deal with it. But I think it's not good for a fair process to have 2 members of the board not have been involved for 7 months as we've gone through this. I recognize there's not much that can be done about that, but I do want to bring it to your attention so that you can think carefully about it and kind of decide how you're going to handle it, because I think it's important. It's important to me, and it's important to the, one of the things, Matt, you talked about early tonight, you talked about 10,000 people down at the Brigham, I heard you say. And what I would say is I'm working to build some housing for just a few of those 10,000 people to be able to come to our community and share in our resources. And I'm going to continue to press on that, because those people, as you well know, Matt, because you serve them, and I respect that tremendously. And some of this housing can be really helpful to those folks. So that's all I have. I want to say something again, but I'll on a kind of a different topic at the end, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I think comment I'll make here is I agree with you that I think it's helpful to have this in writing. It's something this complex. It's easier for us than to sort of talk things out in person than to see things. And I think if the board tonight had the provisional approval and the final comments from the peer reviewer, we probably would have been prepared to vote up or down. And so I think we will continue to have this on our agenda, and probably will be prepared to vote up or down, assuming we have all that information at the next meeting. I mean, as for the transition of board members, that's always tough, right? But that's part of the American system of government, is that one day someone is in office and the next day somebody else is in office, and our lives don't stop as a result. I think we certainly hope that the people incoming, because there at least will at least be one new person on the board in 2 weeks, and hopefully that they, in volunteering to do this, are committed to doing the homework they need to do to get up to speed quickly. Other comments from the board? I see you, Doug. After board comments, I'll recognize you. Anyone else from the board have comment on that? So I think this will be added to our agenda for next week. Julie, go ahead. I just like mock mute.
I was just going to say, I agree. It's the timing of the election and how this hearing is playing out is nothing that anyone wanted to have happen, and it's unfortunate, and it's going to be challenging as a result. I think we have to just move forward with what we have. Yeah, it's going to be a lot for whoever comes on.
I mean, I'll say I would have liked to see it through to the end, but I don't get to pick election day. So, all right. If no other comments from the board, Mr. Kingsley.
Who's rolling off the board and who's staying on for the next meeting?
So I am not running again. And so my seat will be open, and someone is running for that seat, at least one person. And then Rebecca is up for election, and so will be determined.
Sorry, so does that mean we might have a different number of board members at the next meeting?
No, it's still 5. There are 2 seats that are up for election this year. I've chosen not to run again because I want to see my children more. Frankly, and Rebecca is running again, but I believe it is contested, and so we don't know who will win that.
Understood.
And so everybody should vote on Tuesday. I mean, you always should vote, but. All right. If nothing else on that topic, Washington Street Homes 40B. Daryl, any comment here? You're muted, Daryl. I don't know if you're talking.
All right. I was just saying, kick it over to Mark since there was more subsurface work done there, and he can provide an update on that.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Just so the board knows, I was out with the engineer, Deshang Wang, as well as the new engineer's assistant for DGT engineering last week. It was on, I believe, April 26th, last Thursday. And during that time, we did some soil testing for the property to determine the extent of the ledge. There was ledge found in a deep hole near deep hole number 1. And in doing the excavation, they determined that the ledge was going into the area of the soil absorption system. So in discussion, it appears they're going to move the soil absorption system away from that area. We actually did a deep hole in the center too, just to make sure there was no ledge. There was large boulders, but it didn't appear that the ledge was in the center of the system, especially where they plan to relocate it a little bit more to the west, I would say. We still have the deficiency letter that was issued on March 21st, 2024. I have not received any responses to that as of this point. And maybe what's going to happen is they'll put the new soil testing on the plan and resubmit and hopefully update the deficiencies that were sent out on the letter of March 21st, 2024. Thank you.
Thanks for the update, Mark. Questions from anyone on the board? Hearing none, Mr. Kingsley, you have a question?
Yes, are all the documents that are reviewed, for example, site plans that we've seen tonight, publicly available on the town website, and if so, where?
On the homepage, Doug. On the land development, there's a tab called land development on the homepage.
It's under Sherborn Land Development, so the 40B documents are all publicly available. The other documents, the other documents are available, not necessarily on the town website, but they can be requested and they'll be supplied.
And I believe, Matt, almost all of them that went to the Board of Health have been posted as well.
Requested by
everyone. Sorry, Doug.
Requested from whom, Mr. Chairman?
Anyone.
Other documents.
So are you referring specifically to the 40B documents related to the 40B projects, or are you referring to any site plan for any building application?
Let me just, by analogy, say I participated in the zoning board meeting. I saw literally hundreds of documents related to Bob Murchison's proposed project on Farm Road. I don't know where to look for documents for the health.
So I see what you're saying. So the documents for the Board of Health that come in, any permit application, they're not every single permit application that we review, like for example, the food vendor permits, are not publicly posted on our website. We post the agenda publicly. If they're related documents, you can send an email request and we send them out. We don't post them all. The documents related to the 40B discussion, like Bob was saying, those are under land development on the Sherborn website.
And the reason that they are,
if for example, you want to see the floor plans for For 50 Hunting Lane, those aren't publicly posted on the website, but they can be requested from the building office because they're public record.
So, okay, so it's sort of, I'm not being annoying here. It's up to me to figure out who to ask for the documents I'm looking for.
You can email the Board of Health office and they can send them to you.
Okay. Who is the current chair of the Board of Health? Is it Mrs. Beardsley?
Daryl is the chair and I'm the vice chair.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason that you can find the, for example, the Farm Road Homes documents on the town website is because those documents apply to a number of boards and committees, and because of the nature of how this project is being handled, where all the work is funneled through the ZBA, it's most convenient to have all of that posted. That's where we go to see
Thank you.
the latest plans, et cetera.
Ms. Beardsley, did you receive the email I sent you earlier this evening regarding a request for an agenda item for the next meeting?
I'm not looking at email right now, so no, I have not read it, but I assume if you sent it to the sherbornma.org address, I'll have it.
Send it to the one on the website next to your name.
Okay. All right.
And we'll discuss the agenda in a moment. But I think we're still doing questions on the Washington Street 40B. Ms. Wazlowski, did you have a question?
If it's okay, if I
I
could
say
just,
Miss, but I don't know if that's your honorific. So Meredith.
at 34 Greenwood, thank you. If I could briefly say one more thing to Doug about, he can also go to the Board of Health office in town hall Monday through Thursday in the mornings and have access to really anything, most up-to-date things there. And I think it must be true for the other offices as well. Maybe their hours are different, but you can go there in person as well and will be helped.
Thank you.
All right, Bob, is I think we're still talking about Washington Street Homes, but I'm not sure. Bob, is that what your comment's about?
I certainly have some more to say on Washington Street Homes.
Okay,
yes.
go ahead.
So I'd start by just to benefit Doug and other folks, and it's just I think an important reminder for everyone involved in this process how it works. With regard to the overall proposal, Daryl's correct, that is managed by the ZBA, and any local regulations that are to be applied to the projects, either Farm Road or Washington, as we're discussing tonight, any local application of local regulations is done by the ZBA and through the ZBA. However, it's really important to note that the Board of Health has a direct role in the projects, and that is we have applied on both projects for a Title V application for a septic system. And with regard to the state rules on Title V, the board is directly charged with approving or disapproving the septic systems under Title V. If the ZBA wants to go further, and applying the local regulations, they can choose to do that or not. But the board is firmly in charge of the state regulations. I will note that on Farm Road, I'm not aware of any non-compliant local issues. And if the board is aware of any, I'd be happy to discuss them. And in fact, on the Greenwood Homes project, the ZBA asked the Board of Health, and I think it would be helpful in these two projects as well, to come up with a list of waivers that the board thinks that we need on the projects under the local regulations. I found that process very helpful, and I think the ZBA did as well. And so I hope we can repeat that. But it's important that everyone understand that the Board of Health will approve or disapprove the Title V application under state law. So that's what I have on that topic. And if there aren't any questions, I was just going to kind of update from our side, similar to what Mark did, if that's all right.
It looks like Meredith has a question, then we'll go back to you. Okay, Bob?
Okay.
Yeah, I do have a quick question, and it's interesting that you are asking the boards to let you know the waivers, Bob. And
Sure.
It seems to me,
Yeah.
Bob, that you should be able to come up with that list.
Well, so what the ZBA what I said to the ZBA, and I think the ZBA agreed with this, that it's oftentimes difficult for me to know exactly how the board will be interpreting their own regulations. I've had some difficulties over time understanding what a lot of the regulations mean.
Well, it would seem like you could
Shall
be
I?
helpful by giving them at least a first shot.
Okay, you interrupted me though, Meredith. Let me finish what I was saying. I have given it a first shot. So yes, and that is up on the, as it was with Greenwood Homes. And basically when you present the application to the ZBA, you give them a list of what you believe are the waivers. However, I will tell you that I took a very broad brush approach to that list of waivers. And I actually don't think that once we get down to the details toward the end, like we did on Greenwood, that there are very many waivers, particularly in the septic world, that we will need. Obviously, in the case of the Washington Street project that we're discussing right now, the local well regulations are not in play because we're going to be a public water supply, which will be regulated by DEP. But with regard to septic, well, in Washington, with regard to septic, we did have one test hole that was at 4.5 feet. The other 4 test holes in the system met the local depth of groundwater. So we missed by 6 inches, and we met the depth of groundwater on the other 4 holes in the septic system. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying,
rephrasing it is they're having them help you retool the initial waivers. It just seems like you're giving them a directive, and that just isn't, that doesn't sit well.
No, that's
So
It's just an opinion. You can take it or leave it.
I am not giving a direct.
Meredith and Bob, both of you. So I want to try to avoid direct back and forth here since it's our meeting. I will say that, you know, we also do take seriously the need to interpret things in the context of our waivers, and we're happy to sort of decide if we feel like waivers would be needed. We obviously appreciate that you come through and request what you think would be needed and list those, and then we will sort of interpret our regulations because we do see that as part of our job.
Yeah, and Meredith is correct. I don't have the right to ask you for that. I asked the ZBA to ask you for that. In the case of Greenwood Homes, they asked you for it, and I'm hoping they'll do that again. But Meredith is correct. I don't have the right to ask for it directly.
And on the earlier comment, I think we also are well aware of our sort of role in approving Title V as a direct.
That comment was for the gathered folks.
Flow through where the information is posted. All right, Doug, do you have a question?
Yeah, on that very specific topic that you just mentioned, is Bob's comment actually factually correct that about you approving or disapproving Title V or not?
Yes, it is.
Okay. That apply to all 40B projects?
Yes.
Including Farm Road?
Yes.
Thank you.
Rebecca? Rebecca, you have your hand up?
Sorry, I just had to do a settings.
Yeah, I forgot.
Interference. Sorry about that. I just also want to point out that on the 40B projects, this is unpopular, but it's true that the state will defer to the local regulations for projects of under the statute unless an alternative is available. And in this case, a remote source of drinking water would not be available. So it's likely that our existing regulations would be upheld at the state level because of the unique circumstances of the groundwater in Sherborn. And the reason that even though you were only off by a few inches, there's actually, I mean, you know this, you've been doing projects in Sherborn for a long time. There's a reason that we don't give variances on new construction because you can just design the project to fit the local characteristics of the land. And so it's great that you have such good people working with you because you can design a system that works for the ground where you want to build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Do we have any further comment on Washington Street Homes from the board? Bob, did you? I can't remember if I was going back to you for one more comment on Washington Street.
Well, if we're all done on Farm Road and Washington Homes, I had one more comment. Are we all set with everyone?
I think so. I didn't see anything else from the board on those topics.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you, Matt, for all the work over the years. I certainly, as a resident, appreciate the work you've done. We haven't always agreed, but I'm appreciative that someone as smart and talented as you are took on some public service. I wish you were going to do it for a few more years because I'd like you to be a part of reviewing my projects. And Rebecca, I guess we don't know whether you're going to be back. If you're not, I am grateful to you as well for your work and your service. And yeah, and if you are back, then we'll keep at it. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. All right. So I think then, unless I'm missing anything, our last topic on the agenda for tonight is the agenda on 5:15. So items for that at this point. Does anyone know if we have variance hearings scheduled? Mark or Daryl, do you know?
Yeah, we do. I can't remember the plans, but I believe we have at least one. I believe, but I'll check with Jean tomorrow.
Okay. So it sounds like at least one variance hearing scheduled. We are planning to discuss again the fee waiver request, hopefully with input from finance. We will again be discussing Farm Road Homes and Washington Street Homes. And then it sounds like we have a request out of the agenda, a discussion of the manner in which we conduct our meetings, whether via Zoom or in person. Does anyone have anything else for the agenda?
And how the Zoom meetings are conducted.
And apparently how the Zoom meetings are conducted. I mean, we can discuss that, but that's fine. Rebecca, is your hand still up from before, or did you have something to add? Jai, you're muted.
Ah, shoot there, sorry. Trying to minimize interference. Yeah, no, I agree that we should discuss every aspect of the concerns that were raised today, how the meetings are run, whether we have chat. You know, we can go over all those things, what the justification is for the decision, whatever it is, what the majority of the board feels, what's the procedure, et cetera. It's totally appropriate.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Anyone have anything else to add to the agenda? All right. Then as a last comment, I'll say thanks
come
to
up in
everybody.
between.
What's that, Daryl?
Things always come up in between.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be more.
Never fear.
There always are, and that's why we post them 48 hours in advance, because we give us to the last minute to add things. All right. If nothing else, I want to say thanks to everybody for the last few years. Thanks especially to Mark. Thanks to Ellen, who I'm sure in her retirement will read the minutes to know I thanked her. But thanks to all the other members of the board. It has been an experience. I think we've done some good. I think it hasn't always been easy. As we can see, we often disagree with people, but I think everybody has the best intentions. So I have appreciated the experience.
Thank you, Matt, and enjoy your kids.
Thanks.
They grow
Well,
fast.
thank you.
And I
Thank
wanted
Great
to say,
having your input.
go ahead, Daryl.
I'm sorry.
No, we can take breaks. I was just saying, it's been great having your input on everything.
Well, thank you.
Most welcome.
Yes, and keeping us on task.
No problem at all. Happy to run the meetings. Glad I'm not doing it anymore. But tell you what, if there's another pandemic, I'll volunteer again. Okay.
Sure. And that's what I wanted to say, Matt. Back in 2020, when it felt like the building was burning and things were slowly disintegrating, you ran into that burning building. And I just have a tremendous amount of respect for you for doing that. It's such a difficult moment. It takes a really special kind of person to step up in that moment. I also want to pause and recognize that all of this time that you've spent has been at the sacrifice of the rest of your household. And so it is the support of them that also has allowed you to contribute this time. And so to the rest of your household, I want to say thank you, because this is truly, when people volunteer for our town, it is the effort of an entire family. It is not just one person. And so I thank all of them as well for the time that they've committed in such a difficult hour, especially during COVID. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I'll pass that along. Elise has been counting down the days. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, my husband said he's not voting for me.
All right, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All right, Matt Beavers, aye.
Julie Dreyfus, aye.
Diana Hook, aye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Daryl Beardsley, aye.
Thanks a lot, everyone. It's been fun.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night, all.
Night.